AD 0, or somewhere around there, Jesus is born. Mary screams out in one last push of labor. Joseph catches baby Jesus as he comes shooting out, and the heavens opened up, and the barn animals all did nothing because they were completely unaware of the significance of the event. And then God looks down from heaven and says, "Merry Christmas! Ho, ho, ho!" Which in the original Hebrew is cha-ching, cha-ching, cha-ching. And then once Mary, Joseph, and Jesus were all asleep, God climbs down their chimney, even though they didn't have chimneys back then. And he walks up to the family Christmas tree, even though they don't have those kind of trees in the Middle East. And then God eats the rest of the milk and kosher cookies that the pregnant Mary had sort of been hoard binge eating while she was pregnant. And then God pulled out his naughty or nice radar gun. He pointed it at sleeping Joseph, and the dial leaned towards nice. So God put under the Christmas tree a sports jersey of Joseph's favorite pole vaulting team, the Jumping Jews. And then God pointed the radar at Mary, and it said naughty because it was a legalistic gun. And after all, Mary did get pregnant before her marriage. So then he pointed the radar at Jesus. And the dial slammed to the nice side so hard that it broke with an explosion. And everyone woke up, and Santa tried to dart to the chimney to escape, but he was too fat, so he didn't make it. And so God climbed up the chimney, but it was too late. Mary had awoken and seen him. Mary had seen God's scraggly old man beard. She'd seen the big sack God carried over his shoulder for collecting church tithes. She'd seen the red outfit God wore as camouflage for swimming in the blood of sinners in the Old Testament. Mary had seen God and lived to tell the tale of the bearded, red-cloved, kosher cookie-eating, chimney-climbing, sack-carrying intruder. And that, children, is how we got Christmas. Now, of course, some of this is embellished. Obviously, we don't know that God wore red because we know for a fact that he wore light purple. But seriously, we intuitively know this version of how we got Christmas is bogus. But do we know any better? We think this is silly, but do we know how we got the modern version of Christmas? How do we get from Jesus being born in AD 0 to covering highly flammable trees in Christmas lights and stuffing things up a turkey's backside in 2014? How did we get the modern version of Christmas? Well, it really did begin with Jesus being born, which is a historical fact. There was a real historical Jesus. You don't have to believe all the supernatural stuff if you don't want to, but from just a historical perspective, Jesus was born and did exist. As leading historian Dr. Bart Ehrman, who is an atheist, has said, "I don't think there's any serious historian who doubts the existence of Jesus. We have more evidence for Jesus than we have for almost anybody else from his time period." End quote. So, Jesus' birth really, as a historical fact, is the first Christmas. But they didn't call it Christmas yet. That came later. You have to get crucified first if you want a holiday in your honor. Soon, after Jesus died and rose again and left the earth, the early Christians decided, we're going to worship him and make his birthday a big deal. But they didn't celebrate it on December 25th. That also came later. In fact, historians think Jesus was probably born around September. So if after the first few weeks of school or work, you're like, I'm done, you can take a religious holiday and say, I'm celebrating Jesus' real birth. And the Bible itself never mentions the date December 25th. So, I mean, on Christmas, you can wish Jesus a very merry on birthday, because it ain't his birthday, most likely. In fact, it's only in the 4th century, hundreds of years after Jesus was born, that we picked December 25th. Some non-Christian skeptics like to argue Christians stole the date from pagan religions and what they worshiped, which, might be true. But it doesn't really affect my faith at all, because the Bible never says December 25th, and the date could change, but the significance of the event itself would remain. Plus, no one really knows for sure anyway. when he was born. Could have been April 1st. And he's like, I'm God, fooled you. April Fool's Day. No. What we do know for 100% sure is that Santa Claus is real. Seriously, there's a Santa Claus. He's a real person. Have you ever heard him called Saint Nick? That's because he's based on an actual historical figure called Saint Nicholas. Saint, Santa, Nicholas, Claus, Saint Nicholas, Santa Claus. You can see how something like that would happen. Saint Nicholas was a Greek Christian in the 4th century church in what is now the modern day country of Turkey, which is why we eat turkey on Christmas. No, it's not. But he really is from Turkey, and Saint Nicholas was famous for giving gifts to the poor. There's one story where he gave 3 girls a massive gift of money so they wouldn't have to be prostitutes to survive. This, combined with the wise men giving Jesus gifts, is the primary basis for the modern gift-giving of Christmas. Of course, Nicholas gave gifts to the poor, and modern Christmas has evolved slightly beyond that. Many Christians today wouldn't even go near a prostitute, let alone give her a gift, because it would undermine our superficial moral face that we have to keep up, apparently. So Santa's based on Saint Nick, gives gifts to the poor, and Saint Nick was a leader in his church. One day he was invited to this big fancy gathering of Christians called the Council of Nicaea. And this other church leader at the meeting, his name was Arius, was going on and on about how Jesus isn't really God, which is what the church usually calls heresy, a false belief. Heresy is saying something about God that doesn't align with the Bible. So Arius thought that Jesus was just a nice guy. You know, he had some good bumper sticker sayings, but nothing more. Jesus is good, but not God. And so Saint Nick loved Jesus so much that he got up, walked over to Arius, and smacked him upside the head. You better watch out. You better not cry. You better not pout. I'm telling you what. Santa Claus is coming to town. Santa smacks Arius. I like to imagine that when he did it, he said something after like, I came to give presents and to punch heretics, and I just ran out of presents. Something, you know, like a cool line, or he said something like, look, it's snowing, let's take this outside. Saint Nick he's like a thug who becomes a Christian and tries to change his life, and he goes around beating people up for Jesus. It's misguided and totally out of line, but you can see underneath it all that he's trying to serve God in a way that makes sense to him. What do you think happens next? Santa goes to jail. Sounds like a bad note for a TV movie, like Santa goes to jail or Santa goes to the beach. Saint Nick gets charged for physical assault and goes to jail. And he deeply regrets what he did. He comes to realize how he actually failed Jesus by resorting to the very violence Jesus spoke so vehemently against. I mean, after all, Jesus was called the Prince of Peace. Saint Nick is a complex figure. He's compassionate, generous, he gives and he gives. But he's got a temper. And his passionate rage, and he might have a little arrogance. If you're good, you can sit on his lap, but if you're bad, he's going to sit on you. And you're going to suffocate, and a new phrase will enter the English language, death by Santa. We like to sand down the imperfections of our heroes. Idolize them, put them up on a pedestal, turn them into saints. Santa Claus is supposed to be this loving grandfather figure who has a big, jolly voice that makes us feel safe inside. We took Saint Nick, we made him this lovable fairy tale, added some Coke, and voila, a Santa Claus for the modern age. A perfect, jolly saint. But the real Santa is a flawed, complex figure. He's a reminder that even the best of us, even the so-called saints, are human. As Romans 3 says, there's no one truly righteous, not even one. We're all flawed, broken, insecure, confused in our own way. Santa Claus is a reminder that all of us, even the so-called saints, even the people who wear a respectable face, need a Savior. And that's what Christmas, at least the first Christmas, was all about. The coming of a Savior. The birth of someone who'd grow up to show us the way to save us from ourselves. So that's how we got the date for the gig, December 25th. That's how we got the band together, Jesus and St. Nick. What about the other aspects of Christmas? Where do the other things come from? Well, hanging things on trees probably came from the Druids, who believed trees were basically gods. So it's idol worship, and you're all going to hell. Mistletoe is thought to come from Frigga, the Norse goddess of love. And kissing underneath the mistletoe didn't begin until the Victorian era, which is funny because of how sexually repressed the rest of that era was. Santa's sleigh came from a dream an author named Washington Irving had in the 1800s. He's the same author who wrote the story The Headless Horseman. So may your Christmas Eve dreams be full of headless Santas riding evil demon reindeers. In 1890, a whiskey maker used a snowman to showcase an entirely different kind of holiday cheer. He had this chain-smoking snowman become the go-to guy for alcohol sales, appearing in posters for Miller Beer, Jack Daniels, and eventually he evolved into Frosty the Snowman with his corncob pipe. Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer began as a department store advertisement in 1939 because Blitzen was too busy bombing the English. And of course, Christmas evolved differently in different cultures. There are 13 Santas in Iceland. They come down from this mountain one by one, starting on December 12th, and they have names like Spoon Licker, Door Sniffer, and Meat Hook. And in the Czech Republic, they enjoy Christmas dinners of fish soup and eggs. And the number of people at the table must be even, or the one without a partner will die that year. And in 1965, the first song was broadcast out into space, and they were Christmas songs. Imagine some alien race discovering the first trace of human existence through Christmas songs they found echoing throughout the universe. What picture do you think these aliens would have of us based on these Christmas songs? How would they reconstruct what humanity is, what this species is, based on the songs that they got? They'd probably think we all worship trees, offering these presents to it, sacrificing turkeys. They'd probably think humans were all male, since Santa Claus is just another one of the many male-dominated stories so common to our culture we don't even think about it. I mean, the only hint of a female in this story is Mrs. Claus, who stays at home baking with the little ones, i.e. the elves. They'd probably think humans are all white, since the old white man saves the day and everyone has a white Christmas. And the story of Christmas is about as whitewashed as the Caucasian paintings of Jesus, who for the record was Middle Eastern. The aliens would probably think that the rich countries must have been full of people who are nice, since they get all the presents, and the poor countries must have been naughty because they get nothing. And in the later 20th century, Christmas began to be openly secularized, which means you take all the religious aspects of it and you strip them away and just make it a secular, non-Christian, non-religious holiday that even non-Christians and atheists and other religions can celebrate. And apparently Christians are supposed to be mad about this. How many times have you heard someone say, "You're taking the Christ out of Christmas," or something like that? Maybe not with the accent. Or people will say, I'm not going to say happy holidays, it's Merry Christmas. Or it's Christmas, not Xmas. Which, that one's actually my favorite because X in Xmas actually comes from the Greek letter chi, which in Greek is used to symbolize Christ. So it's still Christmas. I love it when people get really mad about something that they don't have any clue about. So everyone's trying to put the Christ back into Christmas, but I wonder, do we even want Christ to be associated with Christmas at all? I mean, the first Christmas in AD 0, the one Jesus was actually at, looks nothing like the Christmas we have now in 2014. When Jesus was born, it was in a barn to a poor family in a third world country before electricity, ovens, running water, or wrapping paper. And then this baby grew up to stand against all the blindly accepted traditions of his society, questioning the rich and serving the poor. Today, Christmas grosses over $3 trillion in North American business. It's the highest selling time of the year. We spend over $1 billion on just Christmas trees, which costs as much as many people make in a year. In fact, some companies have begun selling upside-down artificial Christmas trees because you can fit more presents underneath the tree that way. Many parts of the third world, people would kill to get a Christmas tree because you can actually eat a Christmas tree. The needles have vitamin C. Boxing Day originally gets its name from all the money collected in boxes for the poor. Now it's the highest grossing retail day of the year. Christmas, the celebration of a poor peasant baby born in a barn, has become the capitalistic symbol of so much that is wrong in our world. People want to force Christ back into Christmas, and I get it. Maybe that could actually help redeem Christmas by making it about someone whose ministry was all about the poor, like Jesus' was, but perhaps Christmas has wandered so far that we should ask ourselves, do we even want Christ to be a part of it anymore? Do we want him to be associated with Christmas? I don't know. What do you think? I mean, I feel horrible even thinking that way, because Christmas is probably my favorite time of the year. All of the best memories I have are at Christmas. I'm not against Christmas. I love Christmas. I'm not against presents. I love presents, and for many people, giving presents is their love language. It's how they show expression and affection and love. But I do wonder, what ratio of gifts should I give to my family and friends, and what ratio should I give to the less fortunate? I mean, giving Christmas gifts started because St. Nick gave to the poor, to prostitutes, to the homeless, the less fortunate. There's nothing wrong with celebration and gifts, but perhaps they should occur in conjunction with helping others in less fortunate circumstances to have the same celebrations. I wonder, am I a hypocrite? I just had my birthday this last week. So December is quite the enjoyable, feastful, profitable month for me. I mean, I don't know if that's inherently wrong, and we regularly give to the poor, but what's the right amount? What's the right ratio? Am I doing enough to share the celebration with those in less fortunate circumstances? That's a question we all need to ask ourselves on a regular basis. Jesus says to love the Lord your God with all your heart, strength, soul, and mind. So use your mind to reflect on these kind of questions and think about them. I don't want to take down Christmas or chop down the Christmas tree, but I do want to encourage us to reflect on the things that our society celebrates, to ask questions about our traditions, to evaluate what we do, what we believe, how we exist and act in the world, and to think about how our existence might impact the broader world around us. That's one of the reasons as a church we're trying to get more involved. In 2015, we're committing to do bi-monthly projects working with the less fortunate, because the real meaning of Christmas has less to do with December 25th and more to do with how we live the other 364 days. So we're striving to do more. It's not much, but it's a start. And I'd encourage you to reflect on these questions for yourself. Am I doing enough? And so I leave you not with a resound statement of Merry Christmas, but instead with a question. Question to ask yourself. I hope you take these holidays to enjoy and celebrate with family and loved ones, and also to reflect on what it means to have a Merry Christmas.